I hate it. I love that. Good morning, everybody. Woohoo! Welcome to our Top Guns. Let's protect your commission because let's face it, today we have a lot of crazy people who are very, very desperate out there, and we have to save our commission every time we turn around. So this is what we're going to focus on today. So the first thing, and please guys, those of you who are on, I'm going to share my screen, but I want you to unmute yourself and ask questions because honestly, I'm not going to be looking at the chat box. Let me just put that out there. So go ahead and unmute yourself if you have a question. What we're going to look at first is something that NAR puts out for an arbitration worksheet. And I want to look at this because this has everything to do with procuring cause. Okay, I actually just had to go to the board 2 weeks ago for a procuring cause case. This is not the first time. We have had more people stealing deals than ever. And you know, the code of ethics protects us to a point, but only if we know what it is and we have protected ourselves by doing the right thing. So it's critical that we understand what the right things are. What do we have joining? Who's coming? You see Maria. So this worksheet I put in here for everybody, it lets us know what they're looking for. So if you ever had to go into a procuring cause case, they want to know, was an offer of compensation made through the MLS? Is the claimant the party of the listing broker side or the other side? What is the nature of the buyer agreement? So the third question they are asking, do you have a broker buyer agreement? Because guess what, guys? If you do, now the code of ethics is there to protect you. The only way, you know, it's funny. I've heard agents say, I've been working with this client. Everybody calls them a client. In the state of Florida, are we clients? Elizabeth, you know this.
Are we
clients? Do we have clients?
Customers.
That's right. We have no clients. We only have customers because we are not single agents. We are transaction brokers. We do not have a fiduciary relationship. So stop using the word client because it's not really accurate. And you could be representing a false type of relationship. Number one. Number two, if anybody tries to switch a relationship type in a listing agreement, which happened to us last week, don't do it. We never switch our brokerage type. We are always transaction brokers. So that's not going to happen. And why you want to use that broker buyer agreement is because the code of ethics clearly states when you meet a customer, you have to ask them. Now we say, are you working with another agent, right? But is that really enough? What do you guys think? No. The real question is, are you in an exclusive relationship with an agent? And the reason you're asking that is what you're saying is, do you have a broker buyer agreement? Or if it's a seller that you're seeing a bunch of other people, do you have a signed listing agreement? Because it's an exclusive right to sell listing agreement. There's a reason that word exclusive is in there. That now, anytime there's an exclusive relationship, so exclusive broker buyer agreement, exclusive listing agreement, you now have a relationship that due to the code of ethics, we cannot cross. So as soon as we find out, which we can only find out by asking, do you have an exclusive relationship? If they say yes, we must back away. Because a second really large thing in the code of ethics, it states you are not allowed to put in an offer with a customer who is in an exclusive relationship with somebody else. So therefore, your commission, guys, gone, vanished. But hey, Miss Rosanna, help yourself to each one of the forms. What's really important to understand about that is, guys, if you're the one with the broker buyer agreement and somebody else stole your customer at the last second, what, does this happen? Yeah, all the time, right? Guess what? It's a very clear-cut case. And I could just simply call the broker and say, I'm a little confused. Do you guys have an exclusive broker buyer agreement? Because we do. Right? And now what happens? Who gets the commission? We do. Because they're violating the code of ethics simply by putting in an offer with a customer who is in an exclusive relationship with somebody else. Does anybody have a question about that? Because it is so critical, especially right now in this crazy market. You understand that because people are losing their commissions. How many of you right now who have just shared stories with me that you have lost commissions by other people stealing your deals? Yeah, April, have you ever lost any, Rosanna? Not that you know. So anybody else online there want to share? Anybody? Feel free to take yourself off mute or not. See why I hate Zoom? Because it's like talking to the black box. Okay, we're gonna let Rainey in. Rainey will talk. Rainey's a talker. Come in, Rainey, come in. Okay. Now, They want to know, are any of the brokers acting as sub-agents? How was the first, so here's the point. Okay, if you have a broker buyer agreement, it's pretty much a moot point, unless there are a few, hi, Miss Angie, help yourself to a form, that could make you lose your commission. Number one, did you at any point drop the customer? Did you abandon them? That's what it's about. It's about abandonment. Did you abandon the customer? Okay. You have to be able to prove that you have stayed in contact with them. Listen, if you go MIA for 3 months, it's kind of abandonment, right? So you could have a broker buyer agreement. The broker buyer agreement could be a year long, but if you've stopped contacting them, help yourself, then you're going to have an issue, right? Because that's considered abandonment. And there is estrangement. So what is estrangement? It's kind of a strange word, right? But it means that you have done something to alienate yourself. Maybe you didn't represent them in a way. Maybe you made them upset. Maybe there was something negative that happened that made them choose not to work with you. Not, I woke up today, the sky was blue and I decided to pick another agent. That's not estrangement, right? That is a fickle customer. Guess what, guys? There's a lot of them out there because they're desperate, especially buyers. They're so desperate to get a property and they feel like if I have to drop you to get, and someone else says they can get it for me, I'm going to do that. The reality is we all have access to the same inventory. So unless they're the listing agent, which we're seeing, right? I mean, they can steal a customer, couldn't they? It's happening, guys, all over. So you've got to be really, really clear on this. So you could go through the rest of this form. What I really wanted to show you was number 3. If you have a broker buyer agreement, you are protected, but you must make sure that you have continued your assistance with them. You did not abandon them and you did nothing to create an estrangement where you, now let's say you had a broker buyer agreement. Elizabeth is working with a customer. She has a broker buyer agreement. They go to see Angie's open house and Angie says, listen, I know Elizabeth, she's great. We're in the same company. Don't worry, I can help you. Angie would never do that. There are agents I could name that I won't. Maybe later. No, just kidding. That are doing that, guys. And they're saying, yeah, I know them. We work together. Yeah, they're great. But unfortunately, only 2 people could be involved in this. So if you want this house, you have to go with me. That's happening out there. So if Angie were to do that, which she never would, but if she were, and she writes that deal and Elizabeth had a broker buyer agreement, it's very simple. You show the broker buyer agreement and Angie inserted herself in the deal. Now it's very easy to win that commission. But let's say Elizabeth didn't have a broker buyer agreement. Can we get the money? It's going to be a battle and it's going to be up in the air. We had a case actually recently. We had all of the facts. We had an attorney. We had all of the articles, every correspondence. She was with them for over a year. She got them a rental. She took them to houses. She put in offers. She got an offer accepted that they backed off of. She had everything and she lost. Now, if that was in a court of law, she wouldn't have lost because legally she did everything right. But the problem is, guys, you go in front of a panel of your peers. And what if those peers are good friends with the other person? Do we know? Right? Do you really know who's friends with who? So it's a crapshoot, really.
Is that what happened?
It's what happened.
Someone knew somebody?
I don't know. We don't know why we lost it. No. I mean, we don't know. I mean, realistically, neither party had a broker buyer agreement. She worked with him for 12 months. She did all these things. He came in at the 12th hour and put an offer in the house that she showed him. So, it's a gray area. And this is where we are, guys. We're in the gray. We're in a lot of gray right now because people are desperate. And that's why I really want to point this out to you because you're working so hard. God help you if you're working with buyers. Why do we always say work with sellers, right? But if you decided to torture yourself and you want to work with some buyers, good luck. It's a lot of work and you're doing everything you can to help these people. And if you're not protecting your commission, why are you working so hard? Right? Why are you working so hard? And we can't always blame it on the person, the customers. Yeah, they're desperate, but they don't really know. Listen, they wouldn't like it if it was done to them. But we had something we could have done, right? Didn't we? We all have a broker buyer agreement. We just, for one reason or another, have not chosen to use them. So if you don't choose to use them, can you really complain? I mean, I'm just saying, like, right? Can you truly complain? So this is why I wanted you to see this. You can look through this. And so if by chance you are ever in this situation, document, document, document. Keep your text messages, keep your emails, put a timeline together of everything that happened. And how the process is that I have to actually put in an arbitration request to the board. You pay $500, the arbitration request goes in. I would highly recommend getting an attorney, but you know, it's up in the air regardless. Then they set a date, we go in front of the hearing panel, we present our case. The other party can present their case. By the way, the other party didn't even have a case. I mean, it was, and we still lost. You must. You must. You have 180 days to file after the closing. You cannot file for a procuring cause case during an active contract because now you're violating the code of ethics by inhibiting a sale. You got to be so careful. So you can't call that listing agent and be like, you know what, that was my buyer, because now you could be construed as prohibiting that sale. And if you interfere with that sale in any way, shape, or form, another code of ethics violation. But that one's on you. So it's very, very important that you bide your time. You wait till it closes. You have 180 days to file, and we do it at that point. But again, unless you have a broker buyer agreement. Now, if you have a broker buyer agreement, could you come see me? Could I contact the broker on the other side? Could the broker to broker have a conversation and maybe try to figure it out? Yeah, right? But if you don't have a broker buyer agreement, no. That's a procuring cost case now, right? We got nothing to talk about. It's gonna be he said, she said. That's what it comes down to, right? So I have put that in there if anybody would care to look through this whole thing, but that is actually the arbitration form that the standards division looks at. That's what they use to determine if, you know, if there truly is who should get the procuring cause. Okay. By the way, does anybody think they called it the threshold law or rule? If someone crosses the buyer across the threshold, they win the commission. Does anybody think that?
Oh,
That's
the
the-
threshold meeting they put it
They're
in
the
now.
ones who walked across the
Yeah.
threshold first. Is that April? You think that's true? You've heard that for years, right? Anybody else? Anybody online that wants to unmute themselves?
I think I've heard that, but I don't think it's actually.
It's a wives' tale. It has nothing to do with who walked across first. It has nothing to, because you know what? If Elizabeth has that broker buyer agreement and Angie walks them across first, she's still violating the code of ethics, right? So it really is not all about who walks them across. Now, if nobody has a broker buyer agreement, now we have to look back at history. Now we have to look back at who's been working with them. Now we have to, there's a lot, who's the one who introduced them to the property, right? Who's the one who's been with them the entire time? Did they abandon them? Did they estrange them? You know, then there's other things they look at. But like I said, you could have all of the things perfectly documented and still lose. Uh-huh.
Right, and that. The buyer with that agent.
Happens all the time. But if that buyer did not have a broker buyer agreement, that agent doesn't have anything anyway. The agent has nothing really, because the buyers now, see, this is the other thing. The board would ask the buyer how they feel about it. They would usually put in a statement, right? So if the buyer is like, this person was giving me the wrong information, wasn't listening to me, was sending me 2-bedroom homes, I want a 4-bedroom home, whatever, you're never going to win, right? So there's that. But if you had a broker buyer agreement, you have to actually, I have to, as the broker, release the buyer from the broker buyer agreement. Not to say we wouldn't. Listen, if somebody's not happy with our services, we never want to force them to stay with us. That's not the point of the broker buyer agreement. The point of the broker buyer agreement is to protect your commission that you're working so hard for, and to set the right expectation with that buyer, right? It's all about setting that expectation. So, you know, for fun, we're just jumping over to the exclusive broker buyer agreement. Where is the right one? Because remember, there's 3 of them. There's one for single agency, there's one for transaction broker, and there's one for transition to transaction. Even funnier. But we don't want any of those. We want the transaction broker. And where did I put it? I'll show you. It is right here in your dot loop, put under your buyer folder. So I'm just going to pop over. You see, there's a buyer folder I created for you. And I put a couple extra things in there too that we're going to go over today. The commission agreement. We all need to understand what that commission agreement is and use it. The commission agreement is your friend. home inspection disclosures in there, and exclusive broker buyer agreement transaction broker. So that's where you get it, right? Okay, so let's look at the broker buyer agreement. You know, I know many of you have seen me do this. Can I ask, and please tell me, those folks of you that are on but are muted, who is really using the broker buyer agreement? Rafe. Okay, anybody else? That's okay, you did it twice. Anybody else? Alexa, Craig, you guys, Jackie,
I've used it a couple times.
Jen.
Not really.
Okay, you're gonna start because people are gonna steal your money. Dexter, have you been using it?
I used it once.
Okay, good. I like it. Carolyn Vanderzijden, you using it, my friend?
What was that?
I was asking Carolyn if she's using it, or Beverly, or Andrea Endline, or Rainey. Are you guys using the broker buyer agreement?
I have it, Carrie.
All right, listen.
I used it once.
How was it? Was it uncomfortable?
It's a buyer that I've worked with for such a long time.
Uh-huh.
It was for sale by owner.
Okay, so here you go. With the for sale by owner, you also could have used a commission agreement. So that's where we're gonna go over that. But thank you for saying that, Andrea.
The buyer was going to paid my commission. That's fine.
Well, even better, then it's a broker buyer agreement. Although you can do a commission agreement with the buyer, but why would you bother do a broker buyer agreement? I love it. So the reason most people don't use it, April, you haven't used it. Why?
I guess I just feel like I don't want to hold it up to somebody's head of work.
Okay.
I'm starting to see in certain circumstances where.
So she says she doesn't want to hold a gun over anybody's head to work with her. Thank you for sharing that. That's what a lot of people are afraid of. That's not what the broker buyer agreement is intended for when we use it. I can't say all people. It's been used in a lot of nasty ways as well. I'll tell you, there's truth in what you just said, but that's not how we're going to use it. So this is how we're using this. The first part, fill out as much as you can. If you want me to sign it beforehand, I'll be happy to pre-sign it for you. I don't care. The first part of this is just to say, listen, make sure you're putting a long period of time on here. And you can say, listen, I wrote a year in here. We'll probably find you a home within the first month, but just in case, maybe you want to buy a second one. Nobody cares. Make a little joke about it, but give yourself time, because in this market, God help us all. Like, we don't want them to be very petrified that they'll probably lose 5 offers or more before they but let's be real, right? So that could happen. And then they could get so disgusted that they want to take a hiatus, and then they come back to you. So definitely give yourself time in the broker buyer agreement. This stuff about the property, location, price range, if they're pre-approved or pre-qualified, you want to put by who, you want to say that they have proof of funds. This gives you an opportunity to talk a little bit again about that. But all of this is to say, I just want to make sure we're on the same page. That's all this is, right? Broker's obligation. This is to say, this is my promise to you. Okay, you're going to pick out a couple of these. So you're going to use professional knowledge and skill. Are we? Absolutely. Are we going to help them determine their financial capability and financing options? Of course, we're going to talk to the lender. We're going to help them with whatever they need, right? Are they going to assist in giving them the requirements and locating the proper properties that match their criteria and showing them to them? Yeah, that's what we do, right? Are we going to monitor all deadlines in that transaction to make sure that we stay on top of that transaction so we can get to a successful closing? Of course we are. That's like our number one job, right? Now, do we have to go into this? They understand that we may work with other people acquiring the same property. We may put in 2 offers of the same property. I'm not talking about that. Why would you want to talk about that? Now, if they were to ask you about that, you can say, well, absolutely. As transaction brokers, of course, we're not working for one, we're working for a transaction. But if I have time running around, who has time doing this for how many people, right? So there's always a way around that. I have never had anybody stop me and ask me about that. Fair housing. Let's touch on that, because there are fair housing people out there shopping you, as we know. So fair housing, you can say, and we're going to make sure we're following all of the rules of the protected class: race, color, creed, national origin, familiar status, right? We're going to make sure everybody's protected. Now, this one, we don't have to talk about it here, but we do not warranty or guarantee any of the services we recommend. Listen, that's in all of our disclosures, but it's true. If you recommend Maria, we recommend her because we know she's going to do a great job. But let's say they say, no, I want to use so-and-so, or I need a foreign national person. You don't have somebody, you just pass off someone else's name and they do a terrible job. Are they going to still think it's your fault? Yes. So it's just part of how that works, right? I mean, that's just the nature of the beast. Okay, moving along. Buyer's obligation and all I ask in return. Okay, that's that whole thing. All I ask in return. And you know what I ask in return? They should let me do my job. It's that simple, guys. Now let's look at what it's saying. You know, conducting all negotiations and efforts to locate a suitable property only through broker and referring broker inquiries of any kind of any real estate licensees or property owners. So if another agent contacts you or a for sale by owner, let me know. That way I can take care of all that for you. I'm here to help you. I'm working for you. Not, don't let anyone come steal my commission. That's truly what that's about, right? But that's all in how you present it, right? You're definitely going to talk about that one because that's the reason we're using this. Obviously, if the buyer has been contacted at the first opportunity, they're going to advise the seller or real estate licensee that they're working and represented exclusively by the broker. Make sure you say that. Say, I am here working for you exclusively. I'm taking care of everything. And so just tell everybody, if anyone contacts you, that you're exclusively working with me. That's the word, exclusive, because that's what engages the broker code of ethics, right?
Well, and I think buyers don't really understand how it works.
They
So
don't.
You're explaining it to them
Mhm.
so that they are aware, hey, I really need to stick with my girl here.
Exactly. Providing accurate personal and financial information. Well, hello, we got to make sure that if you're getting a loan, that at the end of the day, you're still in the same position to buy that home, that you didn't go off and buy a car or help you buy a boat or something like that. Right. So just keep me informed so that I can help you. Talk to me first so we can make sure that whatever we're doing doesn't stop your sale, that we're still in perfect position to close at the end of the day. Right. Being available to me at reasonable times to view properties. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Indemnifying and holding broker harmless against losses, damages, costs, or expenses of any kind. This is just a huge CYA, right? We're going to have it in every contract. Listen, we're going to do our best for you. We're going to give all of our attention, our efforts to make sure we're finding the perfect suitable properties for you. We're going to put in your best offer. But the reality is, in this market, it may not get accepted, right? They can't say you did something wrong, right? Now, we don't have to go into that, but sometimes we do today. Sometimes we do. You can share with them. The market we're in now is a little scary in the sense that there's so little inventory and so many qualified buyers. So we're going to do everything we can to make sure that your offer is the strongest offer we could put forth. Now, it may not always be approved, but we're going to do everything we can to put you in the best position without causing you any kind of undue risk, right? Like what? Waiving an inspection? How stupid is that? Then you find out you have polybutylene piping, you can't get insurance. I mean, that's ridiculous, right? I mean, these things are happening, people. Okay, not asking or expecting to restrict the acquisition of the property according to race, color, creed, race, orange. Okay, we don't have to go into fair housing again. We just say that throughout the entire transaction, we're going to make sure that we're following all the guidelines to protect the protected classes, right? That's all we need to say. And consult an appropriate professional. So, for example, I'm not an accountant. I'm not a FERPA specialist, but guess what? I have a great one I can recommend. I can recommend a couple accountants for you. If you want to speak to an attorney, I can recommend that. But certainly you let me know whatever you need. I'll never work outside of my scope because that would not be doing a service to you. And I'll make sure I give you plenty of fabulous people to recommend to make sure you are having the best in each of our individual fields, right? Questions on that? I mean, we're going through each of these things. I don't think you have to talk about each of these things. I think it depends on the person you're with. But I want you to understand, if somebody asked you a question, it's that simple. There's nothing in here that's scary. Is anybody scared so far? Okay. Now, this is my favorite part. And honestly, guys, this is the part that freaks people out right here. So let's look at this. Oh, look, everybody just got really tiny. So a retainer. All right. So upon execution of this agreement, buyer will pay the broker a non-refundable retainer of blank for the broker services. This fee will or will not be credited if the buyer is compensated as a broker. So what this is saying is, for example, in my international brokerage, I took retainers all the time. I'm not putting tons and tons of energy into you and then you don't buy anything. If I'm driving down to Miami and spending time in a hotel and doing all this crazy stuff that I did, there's a retainer here to cover all my costs and but when you close, I'll put that money towards your closing. But if you don't close, I'm taking it as payment. And that's how that works. But in our instance, we're not using this like that, right? Now, if you ever want to or need to, if you're doing a situation like I did, let me know. I've done it a lot. That's how this works. But what I like to do is I like to say, now some people actually charge you to represent them. I don't. There's no retainer here, and you put a big 0 and you cross it out. Charge you nothing. People love that, right? Now the compensation by the broker. People get really, really freaked out here because what some agents do is they put down that they have to pay them 3%. And the reason they do that is because if the seller is offering a 2% compensation in the MLS, the buyer has to pay the additional 1 to bring it up to 3. That's how this section is oftentimes used. We're not using it like that, guys, because that is not a way to create a good relationship. It's not a way to create a good, name for yourself in this industry. We're not going to use it like that. That's not the Sotheby's way. Would you guys all agree with that? So what are we going to do? We're going to cross a line out in the bottom, and we're going to say paid by seller, right through it. Can anybody give me a pen? Does anybody have a pen? I'm going to do one. So thank you, Miss Rosanna. I appreciate that. I'm going to do one of these things for you guys. So I don't even go into all that, guys, because you know what? It doesn't matter. I'm crossing it out, and I'll show you when I demonstrate. And then protection period. Buyer will pay broker's compensation if within blank days after termination date, the buyer contracts to buy a property which the buyer's attention was brought by the broker. So what does this mean? You know what this whole clause is for? Is you're representing them exclusively. You take them to a for sale by owner. Or someone listed, could be listed. This is even worse. And they meet the seller. Ugh. And the seller tells them, guess what? My listing agreement's almost over. If you could wait a couple weeks, then we'll get together and I could give you a better deal because I'm not paying commissions. Don't think this hasn't happened. I've been involved in many of these things. That's what this is for, guys. So if I typically don't talk about this, but if you feel you have to, this is how it comes up. I know you would never do this, Elizabeth, but there has been some cases where, buyers, they went and talked to people behind our backs and they said, we're just going to cut out our agent. We don't care that they did all the work. So we'll just go ahead and make sure that we do this as soon as this is over. I know you'd never do that. So this isn't going to be an issue for you. Right? It's how you present it. And listen, if they're like, then they are going to do it, and don't work with them. Okay? Don't work with them. The most important thing about the broker buyer agreement is to set expectations for you, for them. The expectation for you is, do I trust these people? Are they really in this with me? Or are they seeing other people behind my back? Because, the Brazilians do that. Yeah. Yeah, they're terrible. Okay. So that's what that's about. So I like to put 180 days in there under the, right here. Line 8, protection period. I put 180 days in there. You guys do whatever you want, but that's my typical. Now, early
Mary,
termination.
I have a question.
Hit me.
So I did have an instance with a buyer that was working with me, and then they said, oh yeah, you can't today on Tuesday. Like they called me 1 hour before a show, before they wanted to see a house. So we're just going to go with someone else. I said, okay, well, we're going to have to get into an agreement then, because I don't work like this. I can't spend 4 days a week, and then the one day I can't, you go with someone else that doesn't work like that. And the other person was not available the other 4 days. So,
you know
right?
what? Excellent point, Andrea. My point about the broker buyer agreement, guys, is before you show one home, you have this signed. Now, I would do a buyer consultation on the phone. I like to get a lot of information, discovery, learn all about them, set them up on searches, talk to them about their searches. I like to do that on the phone. I like to do a lot of work ahead of time, because some people like to do that in person, like the funnel. I love the ninja funnel. We can talk about that another day. Again, that's a great thing. But the reality is my time is money, right? And I think you guys would feel the same thing. And so I do a fabulous discovery. I'm going to have you send me the top 5 things you must have. Each party, I'm going to have you send the top 5 things you can't have. We're going to really create that amazing match at what you're looking for. And we're going to hone it as we go. When I meet you, it's to go show property. And we'll meet in a
So, yeah.
Right? I mean,
So when I told them, all this, they said that they had a brokerage agreement last year. They ended up buying with me, and that's, they were stuck in it. And then they spoke to other realtors, and other realtors told them, whoever it may just sign this is dishonest. So I mean, it was a mess. But you know, the guy's actually he worked in my house in the renovation of my house. I wanted to help him out, but I told him, you know, I can't help you.
Did he
And
sign
you
it
know,
with
we
you?
work in other levels together in construction, so I didn't want to get into a bad relationship with him.
So here's a
But I told
response
him
to that.
I would be comfortable signing like a month of a buyer agreement.
Yeah, you change your dates, who cares? But here's the point, when
But if
someone
the
says
closing
something
is
like
after
that,
that date, does
doesn't
that count?
matter. No, it
Okay.
doesn't matter. Because it's when you actually went into contract. So here,
So then they were comfortable. So I mean,
Yeah.
if someone's uncomfortable, just tell them, give me a month and you're gonna see how I work. And I'm sure that after that month, even though it's up, you're gonna still want to work with me. That's what I told them.
you
So
are
I know
more
they
than
did.
fine to do that. When you are working with them, showing them properties, that's when you want to be protected, right? So if that month is up and they still want to work with you, extend it. But if you ever hear, oh, the people who make you do that are dishonest, you'd say, you know, it's funny that you say that. That's probably the agent that's stealing customers from other people. It's very unfortunate. You know, why would my guarantee and promise to you be dishonest? If they don't want to promise to you all the things they're going to do, maybe they don't want to stand behind what they believe in. I feel bad about that, because that's the whole point about being part of the code of ethics. We're very upfront and we want to be very honest about all of the things we're doing for you. Right? Like, who's going to respond negatively to that? Okay, thank you for bringing that up. That's excellent. Yeah, so you can put any time frame you want. Listen, guys, the point of this is for you. You know, the brokerage doesn't require it, but I'm going to tell you that if you're working without one, it's like a ticking time bomb. You're wasting your time, and especially today with buyers, there's so much time. It's a time suck. Let's be honest, right? And it's so hard to find them. You're working so much harder, and for what? If they're going to just turn around and go with somebody else. That is not just money lost, right? That's opportunity. Anybody know what opportunity cost is?
Yeah.
Very big economic thing, right? Opportunity cost. That could have been time you could have been working with a customer you actually could have helped and gotten paid on. It's a time you could have been going out and doing listing presentations. It's a time you could have been prospecting, which would have gotten you more listings, which would have actually been better. So it's not just the time that you spent with them. It's not just the gas that you drove all around. It's the time that you wasted, and not just with them, sending them listings, watching out for things. Like when we have buyers, we're constantly thinking about them, aren't we? Right? So there's a lot of time that you don't even think about that goes into that buyer. And if they're not willing to do it with you, to be in that game with you, partnering with you, I wouldn't want to work with them, frankly, would you? Heck no. Okay, so great point. So early termination, buyer may terminate this agreement at any time by written notice to the broker. Now, there you go. It does say right here, but will remain responsible for paying broker's compensation if from the early termination date to the protection period, they contract to buy a property that you showed them. So all that's saying is, sure, if you're not happy, we don't want you to be working with us. You could go work with anybody else. But what it's saying is, but if you're canceling it so that you can go back and buy that other house that I just showed you, you still have to pay me because that's not right. But I know you would never do that. Right? And if they look guilty, don't work with them. Listen, you know, I used to say to my son, Jake, one of my twins, do you have candy? No. He had hid candy under his bunk bed all the time. He had like a treasure trove of candy. I always knew when he got a new stash, I'd be like, is there candy in there? No. So we know, like, we have that since we're kids, right? If someone's guilty, most people are not fabulous liars. Like, you can see it on their face. By the way, neurolinguistic programming, if you're visual, right? You look up to see it. If you go to the left, you're fabricating that. So if they're like, oh, they're fabricating it, they're coming up with a lie. Just know that, okay? Useful tip. Yeah. You can look up, because I look up. You know, we look up, visual people look up. But if you look to the left, I'm not looking for a memory. I'm trying to come up with something. I'm like, sneaky. Okay. All right. Dispute resolution. Any unresolved dispute between buyer and broker will be mediated. You know, we're not going to have a dispute. We're here for you. If you're not happy with our services at any time, all I ask is you tell me. You know, I'm not a mind reader, and I want to make sure this is a great experience for you. So the only way I can help you is if you tell me. So please just tell me, we can fix it. And if for some reason you're still not happy, we're happy to let you work with somebody else. We have no problems with that. And we don't. I've never not let anybody out of a broker buyer agreement. Why would I? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Right? That's not the reason. We're not trying to hold somebody to fire to work with you. If they don't want to work with you, fine. Suck it up and move on, right? Go get a listing. I don't like buyers anyway. Sorry to you buyers out there. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it's a pain in a normal market, right? In a normal market, you've got that whole roller coaster of emotions, right? Oh my gosh. Today, oh, forget it's like a whirlwind, right? Because it's like the Tasmanian devil. You have to pop around to all the different listings, put in an offer, multiple offers. You lose out, you go to the next one. Oh my God. It's all. Yeah. Yeah. The first thing I do when I meet a buyer's agent is I ask them why. Why are you doing that to yourself? Right? That's my first question. And with Sotheby's, listen, we're not saying you can't represent a buyer, but let's be honest. It's list to last. And what we do is really help sellers sell their home. Not that we can't help buyers, we certainly can, but we have so many amazing tools that nobody has that's really excellent for sellers. Why would we waste our time not giving it to sellers? Just saying. Okay. That's my listing pitch right there. All right. Assignment. Broker may assign this agreement to another broker. I don't care if they're ever like, oh, I don't feel comfortable, cross that out. I'm never going to assign this to another broker. I really don't even know why they put that in there. So I don't like you crossing out a listing agreement. And guess what? I'm never going to sign it. If you cross out the wrong things, then I'm not going to approve it. That's a different thing. That's the company. That's the brokerage agreeing to provide these services. A broker buyer agreement is how you're working with somebody. I don't really care. I'm never going to sign this agreement anyway. So feel free to cross that one right out. I don't mind at all. Brokerage relationship that just tells them, guess what? Great news. See, some people, when they deal with people from up north who are used to single agencies, get really uncomfortable with this because a lot of people up north want to have somebody who's only representing them. So there's a lot of agents who are lazy. I'm gonna tell you, there's a lot of lazy listing agents. I could name them. They're not in our company, but I know them. Anyway, and what they would tell people is, oh, we only work with listings. We don't represent any buyers. That would be doing you a disservice. That's their BS story. Why do they not do it? Because all they want to do is take the listing, throw it on the MLS and move on. That's the reality, but they don't say that. So in case it ever comes up, this is how you present transaction brokerage. Great news. You know why? Because it's always great, right? Everything we do is so exciting, so great, so amazing, right? Even if it's horrible, it's incredible. It's incredibly bad, but we just keep off the bad, right? It's just, how's the market? Incredible. For buyers, unbelievable. Did I lie? I never lied, right? I never lied. Okay. Keep that in mind. Okay. Great news. Because we're transaction brokers, our whole job is to make sure that this transaction stays on target. We're going to make sure you keep up with all the dates and timelines and you're totally ready so you can get to that finish line and move in your new home. Yay! That's all we say. They don't need to know anything else, right? If anyone wants to throw me an objection that they've heard about that, please do, because you know me, I love objections. I have never had a problem dealing with transaction brokerage, ever. I've had a couple agents, well, I don't know. They feel uncomfortable because they used to sell as single agents and they had it ingrained in their mind that it was better. If you came from another state. Is it really better? You learn all this weird stuff about people that you probably don't want to know because you're fiduciary. You can't tell it anyway. Sometimes it's illegal and you're like, ooh, they didn't actually ever file taxes and they lied about something. Like, don't ever tell me that stuff. I don't want to know that, right? So good, we're transaction brokers. Don't tell us. Get ahead. Keep that to yourself. Too much information, right? Yeah, we're counselors enough already, right? We don't need to be priests, for God's sake. Okay, so all good. All right. Any questions on that so far? All right. If there's no questions, I'm going to stop my share for a second and I'm going to present. Everybody ready? Excellent. All right. Elizabeth, I'm going to use you because you're in a great line of sight for me. So what I did is this is the first time I'm meeting you. So excited to meet you. I've got my whole thing, my buyer kit ready. I've got my Cloud CMA buyer tour ready. I got this whole bunch of stuff. And on the top is my broker buyer agreement, pre-filled out, right? And I have it on the top. And I say, I'm so excited to meet you. I have so much stuff for you. But before we get started, notice I didn't give her a thing on purpose. You want it? Can't have it. You want it? Not yours, right? It's part of it. Well, okay. Right? Nope. Okay, so I don't really play with it that much, but I have so much stuff for you. I can't wait to give it to you. But before we get started, I always do it the same way. It's very effective. You flip it around and you say, let's just make sure we're on the same page. Okay, so I know we're starting to work together today. I've said a whole year because maybe you want to buy 5 homes from me. We'll probably be in contract on the first one in a week. Let's hope, God willing, right? Maybe even today. But I also want to make sure that I know you're looking pretty much, you really like Dr. Phillips, but you would be willing to go to Windermere Lake. No, put all these areas in, right? And your preference is a single story. But if you could get that bonus room, you'd be really put anything you want in there. You'd love to have a pool if you could have it, just writing down all sorts of stuff. And we know that you're already pre-approved. We've already gotten everything from Maria Smith. So we're all set with your pre-approval. That's amazing. We know you're comfortable at your monthly payment of XYZ. We're perfect with that. Now, all I'm going to let you know is my promise to you. I am here for you the entire process. I'm going to make sure we're sending you the perfect homes that actually match your needs, because it's all about you. That's what I'm here for. I'm going to make sure that when we find that home, we're going to follow that contract all the way to the very end, making sure you stay in all the timelines, that we have all those contingencies, those safety nets all set properly for you to make sure that you can get to the end and move in that home. Of course, we're going to do everything with the most professional skill and making sure we're watching out for those protected class, family status, race, color, creed, national origin, just make sure we're protecting everybody. Now, all I ask in return, now I flipped the page, right? So let me do my job. That's what I'm here for. Don't feel bad about it. Somebody contacts you, you want to go see a for sale owner, whatever it is, contact me. I'm going to do that work for you. I'm the one working for you. And listen, I know those model homes are incredible. So you're driving around on Sunday, you want to pop in a model home. I'm giving you some extra business cards. You can make sure you tell them that you're exclusively working with Carrie and I'm representing you. That way I can be involved in that transaction, because what happens is they see wonderful. And I know I worked in new home sales for years, but unfortunately, as sweet and wonderful as they are, they really don't work for you. They work for the builder. So they may not tell you all of the opportunities because they have other priorities, and that's to the builder. So that's where I can work on your behalf, or just give them a fake name, whatever works best for you. Okay, now also, if anybody does contact you, please let me know. I want to make sure I can handle that, because you are working exclusively with me, and that's my job. It's not to make you do this. So that is all I ask in return. And guess what? Some people actually charge for that. They charge a retainer. We charge nothing. And you don't have to even worry about paying my commission, because that's paid by seller. So the seller is even taking care of that commission. So for you, all you need to do is communicate with me, because I want to make sure that this is a fabulous transaction for you. But unfortunately, I'm not a mind reader. So if there's anything that goes wrong, just tell me, so that myself, my broker, we can work together to make sure it's fabulous. And if for any reason you're not happy, well, we will wish you the best, and I'm happy to work with anybody you want. Sound good? Sign here. That's it, guys. Anybody feel uncomfortable with that? The good friend's the best.
Yeah, I mean, they're more understanding, but it feels weird that you're like, hey, sign this agreement, just in case you circumvent me.
Well, I have had people say to other good friends, my broker makes me do this. Feel free to use me. I could be your scapegoat. I could be good, bad, or ugly. I don't care. Whatever you need me to do at that moment. I am whoever you need me to be. But just know something. If you bring me in as the bad guy, you can't bring me in the good guy later, right? I have to stay in that. Now, you could bring me as the good guy and then I have to turn bad, but depending on how bad I have to turn, that could be ugly too. So that's why I say, before you bring me into a transaction, let's make sure it's really at that level it needs to be, so I come in the right way. Because I'm always going to represent you, but sometimes I have to be the bad guy. And if I've been the bad guy, now you can't turn around and have me be the good guy. That just looks like false, right? So that's why you have to be really careful about that. Okay, any questions about how we did that? Anybody? Anybody on Zoom? Anybody in the room? What do you guys feel? Comfortable? Okay, excellent. So now we're gonna move on to a couple other things. Because you know me, I talk about my soapbox about the broker buyer agreement. One thing, we talked about, you can cross out stuff in the broker buyer agreement. I don't care. Right? It's an agreement to protect you and your commission. That's what it's for, right? But don't be doing that in the listing agreement. That listing agreement is the brokerage and the seller. You are acting as a representative, but you are not party to that agreement. Don't be confused because you signed it thinking that you're actually making those promises. You're not. It's the brokerage. So if things get crossed out, you're crossing it out, assuming the brokerage is going to be okay with that or not. So one of the big things that I'm going to tell you is right here in the broker buyer agreement. Exclusive broker buyer agreement, backup contract commission agreement. Where did I put? Oh, I must have gotten rid of it. Hold on. Let's put it in again. Let's open up a listing folder. I want you to look at this. Some people are crossing stuff out that shouldn't be. Don't do it. And everybody thinks they're attorneys these days. Not only agents, but sellers and buyers. They all think that they're attorneys. It's like ridiculous. Oh my gosh. All right. So where I see people crossing out, which do not do it, is right under here, under compensation. Line 118D. Broker's fee is due under the following circumstances. If any interest in the property is transferred, whether sale, lease, or exchange, or government action, bankruptcy, or other means of transfer, regardless of the buyer is secured by the seller, but the broker or any other person, if the seller refuses or fails to sign an offer at the price and terms stated in this agreement or defaults on an executed agreement, they must pay our commission. Why I don't want you to cross that out is that we have some people that feel like, okay, they hire us and then they're like, oh, I could do this for sale by owner. Right? That is not okay, guys. We just spent, listen, it's a $1,500 flat fee just to get this started, right? Like all these things that we have to pay for and all this stuff, right? And now they're just going to say, oh, sorry, I want to get out of this agreement. Or worse, you bring them an offer that it has to be exactly as it's written here. If your list price is 1.259, and you got 1.2, it is not what's written in here, right? If they wrote 1.259 cash and you got 1.259, financing, it's not what's written in here. So it has to actually be what's written on here or better. But sometimes sellers are like, I don't want to sell anymore. We could sue for commission. I've never done that. I never have an intention of doing that. But sometimes if you get that seller who's just suddenly turned totally greedy, this is a really important clause to let them know he signed. And if you crossed it out, what'd you do, right? So again, I never have to go back and ever enforce any of this, and we wouldn't. It's just like if commissions are earned, like they keep the deposit. We never keep any of that money. It goes right to the seller. We don't keep the money. But we want people to know that there's rules and things they've agreed upon in here. One of them is conditional termination. You can't just cancel this contract. I have to cancel the contract, the broker. And I only cancel it conditionally. And if I do cancel it conditionally, they have to pay the $1,500 marketing fee and whatever else you wrote in there. So keep that in mind. We don't work for free. If you choose to work for free, that's nice. But the company is not going to spend all this money for nothing, right? That's just bad business. So I want you to keep that in mind. Now, listen, you have a situation, plenty of things we can do. We can go TO1 the whole time and it's not a problem. We always can work around it. It's for that one seller, which we've had, I'll tell you, that mostly figures they could do better on their own. And they either want to go for sale by owner or another agent. Like we actually had another agent. This was Ash Sharma, hard to believe. Another agent kept talking to the seller. Hello, that's a code of ethics violation. It gets worse. They violated FREC. They told the seller, first of all, to cancel our contract. And then he took our sign down and put his own sign up while we were exclusively representing them. True story. True story. That was a very quick call to the broker. And the broker's like, oh, dear God. No, this is just a really slimy agent. I'll be happy to share the information when we're off the Zoom. Horrible. Yeah. So he shouldn't do it anymore because he had a lot of things he had to do on that deal to make up for that mess. But that's not the first time he did it. Milton. His name is Milton. He's done this before, and he sent a text message with the thing down to Ash and said, pick up your sign. Guys, crazy is out there. We need to protect ourselves, right? So that's the point of this conversation. Any questions on any of that? No? Okay. Oh, that's a great question, because that was a FREC violation, but I did not put him in for FREC violation because I worked out with the broker. And I want to do that, right? We want to clean up our own industry. But if it gets ugly, I'm putting him in. Yeah. Okay. So that's the exclusive broker buyer agreement first. And then this is what don't change in the listing agreement, right? All right. Now let's talk about two other things. Number one is a commission agreement. This is now found under the buyer section, but it's also found under Florida Interactive Forms. And so what I want us to look at is, let's say, because you told your buyer, listen, if you see any for sale owners, let me know. I'm happy to represent you. This is what you use with the for sale by owner, right? This is what you use if, let's say, you did a letter because you know that your buyer wants to buy in a community, right? And so you send everybody who has a 4-bedroom home, that single story, that match the criteria, you send them a letter and you say, I have a buyer who's very interested in purchasing in your community. If you or one of your neighbors wants to sell, please let me know. And then they contact you, right? They probably don't want you to pay for a listing agreement, right? I mean, you contacted them. So you can say, will you pay my commission 3%, 4%, 2.5%, whatever you choose to make your commission. They agreed, they're saving money because they're not paying both sides, right? They're only paying you on the buy side. This is what you use, a commission agreement. You do not bring your buyer anywhere unless you have a commission agreement signed ahead, unless you like to work for free. So I have had agents who went and showed the home and then talked to the for sale owner, and the for sale owner said, no, I'm not working with you. So if you're really in tight with the buyer, maybe the buyer will pay your commission, but you would have been better off going to that for sale owner alone first, seeing if they'll, with the commission agreement, seeing if they'll agree to pay your commission. If they won't, now maybe it's a conversation with your buyer, right? And then you could either do the broker buyer agreement, or you can actually use a commission agreement, but you have to change it to the buyer side, which I'd be happy to help you do, because this is really set up for a seller. Now, another thing, if you're dealing with commercial, always make sure, unless it's in the MLS, how many commercial deals are in the MLS? Not many. Most of them are in LoopNet, right? CoStar, that's where you go to get these things. Do a commission agreement. Everybody in commercials trying to steal your commission. And code of ethics does not count because none of them are realtors half the time. Except for Raj, the ones in our office, but most commercial brokerages are not part of the board and not members of the National Association of Florida Realtors and the local board. So therefore, they're not party to the code of ethics, only we are. Right? So that's why you can say, well, I'm in an exclusive relationship. They don't care. They don't care. They can talk to your customer, even if you're in an exclusive relationship, because that's a code of ethics violation. And they're not party to the code of ethics because they're not part of the association. So this is why commercial is critical, that you don't even bring the customer, don't even do anything. And now be very careful in commercial too. They like to send you a form that essentially gives them the right to speak direct to your customers. Don't do that either. Because that's what they'll do. They'll just steal your customer. That's what they want to do. Make sure you don't do anything unless you get a commission agreement signed. Everybody good with that? Now, could you write under additional terms? You know, could you just see what it does say here under this is that if in the event the property is sold or leased to a prospect or any prospect procured by the broker. So you do put the prospect's name up here, Susie and Alan Smith, right? You put the property, you put the seller's name, you put Premier Sotheby's, you're going to sell the property, right? But it does say to anybody procured by the broker. So that means if you brought another customer, you don't necessarily need to do another commission agreement. If that the for sale owner says, or the person that you just talked to says, sure, if you sell my home for this price, I'll give you 3%. Fabulous. This particular one that even said Susie Smith, but now you're not selling to Susie, you're selling to Angie Platten, right? You can still use the same agreement because it says, or any other prospect procured. Okay. If you have multiple prospects, can you write them under additional terms? Sure. Yes.
But fortunately, a lot of the buyers, most of them check out on Zillow, right? So when we're taking to physical, very often they found the property They know the price, they know everything, and then you go talk to the seller, they say no.
So if that's the
Yeah,
case, that's when you could use your broker buyer agreement. You're right. I don't
And if
like
they don't
any,
want to,
what was that?
and if they don't want to, because they don't want to.
Well,
Jeff,
then you could say, listen, I'm sorry, then I can't represent you. Because unfortunately, part of what you pay for covers errors and admissions, because there's a lot of legalities in contracts, in negotiation, and making sure that everything goes through. And that is all covered by our insurance. So if you're not willing to pay for those fees, we can't represent you. So good luck. Where are they going to get a contract from? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, have you found an attorney? If then you turn it on them. Have you found an attorney that you'll be working with? Because you'll be paying them as well to represent you. Right? So the for sale by owner, you could say, well, I'm sorry, are you paying for all the fees for the attorneys? Who's covering the contracts? Have you had a lot of experience with contracts and addendums? Right? Those are all the things you're bringing to the point. Did you do the seller's disclosure? Because in the state of Florida, it's the law that you must disclose in writing. Do you have all that prepared? Right? Guys, this is the time to scare the heck out of them. And then if they still don't want to, listen, move on. It's a buyer. Sorry, did I say that out loud? I can't hide my true feelings. Okay.
There's nothing to protect us in that sense, right?
No, but the reality is, why would you put your neck out there? Because guess what? You're on your own. You can't use a Premier Sotheby's contract if we're not getting paid, right? Because we can't even put it in the system. So therefore, if there's a lawsuit, your errors and omissions coverage that we pay for you does not cover you. You're on your own. I don't know about you, but that doesn't seem like good business sense, right? To take on all the risk, all the liability for no money. Yeah. And then to me, honestly, I would say, Elizabeth, what is it that you do for a living?
I'm in sales,
What do you sell?
pharmaceuticals.
So terrific. So I'll do this for free, and then you can give me all the pharmaceuticals things that I need for the next year for free, right?
I'll leave my job.
Right? I mean, nobody's going to work for free, guys. I love when they're doctors. Those are my favorite. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. So myself and my family, we can all come in for the next year for free and get all your services. They'll look at you like you're crazy. And you say, yeah, I don't work for free either. I mean, it's true. Why should we? Why are we less than? I'm sorry. You need my expertise just like I need your expertise. My expertise is worth a value just like your expertise is worth a value. If you're not willing to pay for it, you're not going to do any procedures on me if I haven't paid. Right? So let's be real about it. So yeah, always go to what they do for a living. I have used that so many times. People always look at you like, did you just say that to me? Yes, I did. And you got to be committed to it. So is it just me or is it my whole family that gets to come for free for the next year? People are like,
The best is when the buyers choose like 15 houses for you to look at, and most of them are giving out 1%.
it's awful too. Now that's where you can, if you wanted, use the broker agreement to make them pay you a difference. But unfortunately in this market, this is why I would highly say, I don't like to do that. So I'd rather say, I'll work for you. It kind of goes back to that seller conversation, right? I mean, 1%. Are you freaking kidding me?
And
Okay.
then when I asked the sellers and they said, well, we know we got 9 listings from them. I'm like, well, congratulations. I'm not getting 9 buyers for you.
No, exactly. Congratulations. Good for you. I'm out. I'll go get my own listing. Thank you. The last thing I wanted to share about protecting your commission is a backup contract addenda. Okay. If you have a buyer and they say it's a multiple offer and they say, okay, we'll take a backup. I have seen agents, good agents, who think they're in a backup position, but they've never done the addenda. You're not in a backup position if you don't have this addenda signed. This whole addenda, you have the contract signed and the addenda signed, because what happens is it says this backup contract is subject to the termination of the prior contract between seller and the third party for the sale of the property. If the prior executed contract is terminated and seller delivers written notice of the termination to the buyer on or before, so you can put a date here. This contingency shall be removed, and this backup contract shall move in first position. The effective date of this backup contract should be the date the seller delivers written notice of the termination of the prior executed contract. Buyer may terminate this backup contract by delivering written notice prior to the date the seller delivers written termination. So you must actually execute a whole contract. You have it all signed and you have this signed because this goes into first position. You don't have to do anything. So if you wrote on the contract that deposit is due within 3 days, which we know is calendar days of the effective date, that means the date they give you in writing, text, email, whatever the case may be, that the previous contract has been canceled, they now have to get their deposit in and they have moved into first position. They do not need to do anything else. If you do not have this, you do not have a backup contract. And here's to this point. I had a situation where we had a customer and it was sort of this kind of thing. And guess what happened? They didn't have this addenda and they said, okay, well, you can have it, but now it's 10,000 more. What could they do? Nothing. They didn't really have an executed backup contract. They simply put in an offer. They said, okay, you'll be in backup position. And then they contacted them and said, okay, you're ready to go into first position, but now you have to do 10,000 more. And the agent called me. She's like, is that true? I said, well, did you do the backup contract addenda? No, it's true. You don't have anything. They're giving you first right of refusal. That's what you have, right? I'm going to call you first. That's all they're giving you. So courtesy, but that's it, right? So if you really want to make sure you're in a backup position, you need to have an executed contract with this backup contract. So that way, nothing has to be signed when the first contract or whatever terminates. So yours simply goes into first position. Any questions on that? Because I have seen more people, and that one just happened 2 weeks ago or a week ago, where she said, can they do that? I said, well, what does your backup contract say? Did you do the addenda? No. But do you know what they did? My favorite thing. They wrote under additional terms. This contract is a backup contract. What does that mean? What does it mean, guys? It means nothing. It's not even worth the paper it's written on. There's no terms. There's nothing that says it has to be delivered by such and such a time. There's nothing that says they have to respond in writing. There's nothing that says it goes into effective position. Nothing. This home is waiving the appraisal contingency. No, you're not. Unless you're crossing out the lines in the contract under the loan approval that states the appraisal of the property must meet the terms of the loan approval. You cross that out, now you're making it not contingent on the appraisal. But you by simply writing this home is not contingent on appraisal doesn't mean anything. Because what does that mean? Having an appraisal, right? Not having an appraisal, having the appraisal price come in higher, lower, like it doesn't say anything.
We can't really strike that out.
You can.
But it, are you gonna approve it?
Are we representing the buyer or the seller? You're representing the buyer. Lord help you. The other way to do it is just say you're cash. Then they could get a loan, but they cannot make it contingent on financing. But if I'm representing the buyer, I hate all of those things, right? I hate it all. All right, so those are the things. I'm so proud of myself. I did it pretty quickly. I covered all of the things that I really feel like today is causing people to lose their commission. Anybody have any questions or thoughts or anything they want to share? I am going to try, and I say that because I still have to get some more information, to train on Thursday at 10 a.m. on testimonial tree. So that is what the goal is. If I make a quick change, it's because I didn't get all the information. But I will be inviting you all to testimonial tree training on Thursday at 10 a.m. Guys, if you have nothing to say, questions or anything to share, thank you so much for being here. I hope you learned a couple things about saving your protection, protecting your commissions, and most importantly, please use a broker buyer agreement. Have a great day, guys.
Thank you.